Norma, I want to introduce you before you start. Norma is another co-founder of the Our Bodies Ourselves organization and co-author of most editions of Our Bodies Ourselves. She's a former Our Bodies Ourselves senior staff member and was the organization's first director of international programs. From 2013 to 2018, Norma served as an officer on Our Bodies Ourselves' board of directors. Without further ado, I hand it over to Norma Swenson.
I'm thinking I'd like to go to the podium and see how long I can stand. Is that okay?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. This might help keep me to my 5 minutes. I think it's tremendously exciting that we were able to make this happen on this day. And I want to congratulate Miriam on her persistence and clinging to her vision, even if it seemed like so many obstacles were going to be in the way of this happening. And I salute her. I want to salute her especially. But first, I want to salute Amy herself and Suffolk University, because I think this is the most logical, perfect home for the work that we want to continue. It couldn't be better. And I love the prominence of human rights in the title, because we've always been about human rights, but we didn't do it in any formal way. And then a whole literature appeared on health and human rights, and I would like to see us pursue more aggressively the connections, and I know Amy will help us to do that. So thank you to Amy, and thank you to Suffolk. My next tribute goes to Sally Whalen, and if you won't stand up, at least wave your hand. And to Aisha Chatterjee, who's not here, but who were the dynamic duo that kept the most remarkable global program afloat for such a long time. It's true that I was in on the creation, but there was a point after which there was no question that you guys were running it, you were shaping it, and you were making us all very, very proud. It's an extraordinary achievement. But the next tribute goes, of course, to Miriam herself, because Miriam was really my introduction to Our Bodies Ourselves. And we have little stories, and I don't have time to tell them all, but I spent many nights when I didn't drive, trundling to Cambridge from Newton on the subway, and anybody who's done that knows that they were never meant to meet. And so I just kept doing it until Paula, who's sitting here, rescued me, and she couldn't understand why I never offered her a ride and couldn't believe that I told her I didn't know how to drive. So, but I'm showing my age, and I am the oldest one of us. My next birthday, I'll be 88 years old. And my ambition is to be the Florence Luscombe of the second wave of feminism. But I have a lot of competition. So, but my tribute to Miriam also includes the fact that I believe she was one of the deciding persuaders that I should become a part of this group, knowing that I was the oldest and thinking I might have something to offer. I think you're responsible for my getting voted onto the board. That's what I think. I don't know if that's true, but that's my memory.
I'll be glad to take it.
Okay.
I'm proud of that vote.
What?
I'm proud of that vote.
Yes, and I'm so thrilled that you had the wisdom to include me. And I wanted to also, in addition to acknowledging the contribution that our guest has made, where is he sitting now? That piece that was on the WBUR blog, how many of you have seen it? I know the Obos people have seen it. It's worth looking at. It's a wonderful story. I don't know how much is Dave's writing, and I don't know how much is Miriam's, and it doesn't matter, but it's a really fine piece, and it's online, and you can bounce it around so that if people don't know there's been a 50th, or the ones who didn't show or couldn't get in, they can read it. It's a terrific piece. So that's this week's news. And I want to congratulate Miriam and Dave for making that happen. And then I'm going to tell one other little story about Miriam. When she was getting close to the end of seeing what this book was turning out to be, and those of you who don't realize this have to know that at that period, in the late 60s and early 70s, there was a necklace of alternative bookstores all across this country. They knew that they couldn't get their political material into mainstream bookstores, so they created their own. And that was an important outlet for Our Bodies, Ourselves. So everywhere, I can't remember the number of thousand copies that we sold of that newsprint. And when Miriam saw that we had the opportunity to decide how to get this book out to as many women as possible, we knew that the alternative bookstore network was not going to do it. And she pushed us to say, we're going to go with a commercial publisher. And that's when the publishing war began between Simon & Schuster and Random House that ended us up in Random House's arms. And without that... Simon & Schuster's arms. And without that, I don't think we would ever have been on the bestseller list. And without being on the bestseller list, I don't think we would ever have gotten the foreign editions that we got as a consequence, because when a foreign publisher sees that something's on the bestseller list, they think, well, we'll quickly rush out a translation and make some money on this. So in the summer of 1977, Judy Norsegian and I took our maiden voyage to Europe. Now, can you believe that we had gotten to be Judy wasn't old, she's 17 years younger than I am, but you wouldn't believe that she hadn't been to Europe, and neither had I, so we started out. And we went to, I think, 9 countries, correct me if I'm wrong, was it 9? 10. Because our colleague, Esther Rome, was pregnant, and we had to be back for the birth. So we raced from country to country, and the news people began to follow us around and took extraordinary pictures, I wish I had them now, making us look like we were natives of the place where we were. But anyway, we did that, and we began to set terms. And one of the interesting pieces of work that I think you can find on the website, but Sally sent to me, was how we changed the rules over the years. So as you look around at these global editions, each one has a unique history, but we decided that the women in the countries had, in the same way that we say women are the best experts on themselves, that those women were the ones to decide what could they use, what they couldn't use, and how to negotiate with publishers, how to raise money, how to put up with the censorship and the dangerous, sometimes, conditions under which they wanted to publish the books. A lot of that is on the website, and if you haven't been to our website, I urge you to go and look at it. So, knowing that my time is limited, let's talk about the numbers. We heard some of them earlier, but these have been assembled, and they're, I think, also on the website, but if not, I'll just read them quickly. The number of languages into which Our Bodies, Ourselves has been translated and adapted, that's 30. New requests. Countries include Azerbaijan, Canada, Croatia, Czech Republic, Republic of Georgia, Hungary, Lithuania, Malaysia, Mongolia, Myanmar, Philippines, Uganda, and the United States for Somali, Native Alaskan, and Farsi, Iranian communities, as well as Vietnam. And that's only the most recent ones. And if you go to the website, you will see that the Canadian women have published their new French edition and are celebrating the publication this month. So who was I? I was fascinated with the idea that Europe was not only alive and well, they were organized and mobilized to pull in the needs of women from developing countries. So we linked up with a number of organizations who were doing that kind of work. And I think you cannot understand the success of how this worked without taking into account the fact that the UN women had, in their wisdom, decided that there needed to be a UN Decade of Women. And that was initiated in 1975, and Judy and I were in Houston for the inaugural portion of that decade, and I attended almost all of the major conferences associated with that decade. And got to know women from all over the world.
Norma?
Yes, I've run out of time.
You've run out of time, honey.
So I'm just going to read a final statement from Miriam Nancy Hawley, which says, and this is her response on universality. We found that so much of what women need is universal despite the cultural differences around the world. 50 years ago, girls and women in the United States often lacked the knowledge to discuss their anatomy. They'd just say, you know, down there. When Sarah and I went to China, she read the section on masturbating with a cucumber to the Chinese women, and it was just a marvelous evening. I will never forget it. So that shows you how far the world has come, because the Chinese women consulted all the Americans they knew to say, give us the list of 10 books that every woman should read before the Hairu conference, and Our Bodies Ourselves was at the top of every list. Thank you.